Hooray, we are live. Um, would you like to disseminate first?
Trying to think. Somehow not prepared to think of things, but
If you need time, I can go, but yeah,
yeah, I don't know if it's gonna get better.
that's fair.
So done some Kiln stuff, some good PRs by Bryce. Really appreciated those PRs. Those little
They were
questions.
small, but yeah.
Yeah, they were good. So I do question not putting stuff in the change log, just because if something does go wrong in the future, it's possible we could backtrack to them and be like, oh yeah, we thought it didn't affect anything, but actually it did affect things.
So, but okay, I did see that comment. I hadn't yet typed out a response, but my
Okay.
general response is, who is the main audience for the changelog in your opinion?
The
Is
main
it-
audience is the users, and they're not going to be affected unless they are affected. Right? So like it may be that we think it's not going to have an effect that will affect the users, but then it turns out that it did.
Well, so how, I guess like, so okay, if we added, say the one you commented that on removing the default and the action YAML, and so it's only in the JS or whatever, like the default max seconds. So we would just say in the changelog, we removed this default, it shouldn't change anything. Then someone gets a bug and they come to us and it's like they like something weird starts happening for their stuff, like timeouts are not working correctly anymore. They look in the changelog. I was like, I'm assuming they would have to notice, they'd have to like be able to notice and be like, oh, well, you got like something other than just like, hey, looks like y'all screwed this up because it's in the changelog, but it's not but it's like, and it said it shouldn't have affected things, but it did affect things. All of that is said, that doesn't feel like too much of a different workflow than someone starts having troubles with their timeouts, and they just come to us and where they make a bug and they're like, hey, we're having troubles with our timeouts. Like the idea that they could go to the changelog, note that there was a change that specifically said it shouldn't have changed anything, and then I doubt people are going to go in and like, oh, like very, very, very few people would go hop into the code and hop into that particular change and be like, oh, it looks like you did this wrong. And most people would just say, like, hey, there's now something wrong with the timeouts.
That's true. But I think about the way DocAssemble does it and the way I have to go digging through the code changes to see that, oh yes, even though it wasn't named in the changelog, also this specific change happened. And if I could have seen that in the changelog, that would have been very helpful. You know, like, yeah, it's especially unlikely right now at this stage of development.
Mm-hmm.
But like I don't think it hurts anything. And
I'm curious of what specific things that you're thinking of from DocAssemble's changelog, because when I think of like, I agree with you that he doesn't put things in the changelog sometimes there, but those things still are definitely like he changes APIs, he like goes through and decides to like run a linter on everything, but not like rerun that code, and so he like has typos in the code and stuff like that. But that's
but for example, he changes the DOM, which doesn't affect most people, right? Like it really doesn't, except for it really messes stuff up for AL Kiln. Right.
He did mention that I thought he mentioned that in the changelog.
There's lots of stuff he didn't mention. There's lots of changes he doesn't mention about the DOM.
That's fair. That's fair. I guess his idea is that it's not considered part of like the API or whatever. I guess I asked that because I wasn't sure if you were thinking about it like as a developer, whereas like, oh, as a developer, we could go through and easily see like the list of all the PRs that we did and what was merged, and we would have a quick eye on like, oh yes, this would be sus. This would like, oh, we decided to change a default. Oh, turns out it did affect something. And for that, for me, I usually just do like the commits. Like I just go through commits and look at what commits were changed or anything like that. And so if the commit message is descriptive and is saying what we've changed, that feels like it's an okay replacement for not putting things in the change log if like absolutely nothing should change. I don't think we need to put everything in the change log in case there was a bug in one of them, or like we misthought something about one of them. Like as long as we are intentionally changing things such that like no behavior changes at all, then it doesn't feel
I
like it
mean,
should be
if
there.
no behavior changes at all, then
Yes.
like that's not actually it's not that's not a fact. It's just our hypothesis.
Again, well, it's our hypothesis, but like if the hypothesis is wrong, we have a bug. And I'm essentially I don't think we need to be putting things that like in the change log that's essentially like we made this change, it could have a bug, we don't know for sure. Like that's true, and that's true with a lot of changes, but I just don't think that goes in the change log. I think that's for developers to note and be able to go and find back. And we can have these discussions totally in like PRs and stuff like that, but I just don't think they need to go in change logs. I think change logs should be short and like a few lines at most, and it shouldn't be filled with a lot of stuff that if someone essentially if someone doesn't have an issue and they look at something in the change log, like then it should only be things that could potentially affect them, like not including like, oh, we missed this and added a bug somewhere accidentally. Like that's my thoughts.
Hmm.
We can ruminate on it
Okay.
more, and
Yeah, yeah.
is if we can figure out
I'm
a
not in a
different way,
rush. I'm not in a
yeah.
rush.
If we can figure
But
out a way, like if there's a different way that we could put it in the change log that it isn't like we changed this, you shouldn't have to worry about this. Like essentially, if
well,
they're
we have the internal category now. If we want to use that, that seems like a reasonable, I mean, a reasonable flag for it shouldn't change anything.
I guess that's it. Yeah. It feels slightly different because internal could be like we are changing like APIs if you're using stuff that we aren't intending to be like
That
APIs.
that wouldn't
But
be internal.
well,
And
it
if
is like
there's an
no, like we
API,
don't expect people to be calling our JavaScript directly, right? And so if we change
that's true.
refactor a bunch of functions, but like someone could go and do that. So if we refactor a bunch of functions, we can say in the internal stuff, hey, we changed a bunch of functions. Like
Yeah, exactly. And then people who are worried about internals can be like, dang it, they changed a bunch of functions.
that's fair. I guess it could go internal.
You're so disappointed. We don't have to do it right now. This can just be the start of a discussion, and we can
Yes, yeah,
flesh
yeah.
out. We can keep a lookout and think about it.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, we definitely. It doesn't. It's not super urgent, but it was something that I would just wanted to bring up of like what our thoughts on change logs were and what should go in change logs. So
Yeah, yeah. We might be a good thing to put in the discussions as opposed to the issues or something like that. I put something into the discussions the other day. That was more like a documentation thing. What did I put there?
I always get lost in discussions still, but
Yeah. Expected input to be a string dot undefined means our tests need to be rerun. Oh, this was for like internal errors and not for like users. I just wasn't sure where to put it. That's fine.
what was this
Uh,
one? Oh,
there's a
was the
certain
first
kind of
discussion.
error that doesn't look like a timeout error, but
Mhm.
does just mean the tests need to be rerun. I don't know what's going on there, but it just means the tests need to be rerun.
Okay.
Anyway, so that was fun discovery. Moving on to other things. the random input, just more has to change on it than I thought, because data types and input types, and there's like multiple layers of it that have now become apparent in the DOM.
Yeah.
That I didn't think was a problem before, but maybe it was hidden by like the improper way I was checking for a custom data type.
Mhm.
Or maybe the DOM has changed, because it's changed a lot recently.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so one of those. But I'm gonna do some reworking. I force pushed a rebase, and
Cool.
I'm gonna do some changes on top of that rebase. I may do it in a separate branch just so it's easy to review the changes that I make, and just make a PR. If that's gonna be too much, let me know and I'll just, yeah, do you want me to just push to the same branch, or do you want,
I feel like pushing to the same branch is fine.
okay,
Like PRs get them. I don't know. I don't. Looking at the history of PRs doesn't really get super unwieldy to me. It's only if it gets if it's a huge PR. And looking at the stuff you've force pushed so far, it's not that big still. So
yeah, well, it was just a rebase to
yeah.
main,
Okay.
so to version 5. So that shouldn't have had any substantial changes at all. The substantial changes are coming next, and they, because of this change, might be a little bit
If
more
they're a bit
different than
bigger,
I'd hoped, but
that's
we'll
fair.
see.
It's still like related to the same stuff. So I don't think
Yeah.
it makes sense to make a new PR for it, even if there
Okay.
is some cruft at the beginning of just like our original discussion about it. So I think it's fine.
Okay. Oh, I don't mean a totally new PR into version 5. I just mean a PR onto your branch, onto your PR.
Uh,
Like
that,
this.
that, that okay, I see what you think. That's fine. Sorry, I thought you were saying we should just like close this one and make a new one, and I was like, don't really.
No,
Okay,
no, I like the work that's in this one. I want to keep that.
okay, PR and
And I want to
PR
keep
and
that
PRs
history.
is fine. I
Okay.
think yeah. So okay.
Um, so I'm gonna do a bit of that work. I also did a bit of work brainstorming with someone about how to change the data structure of our field objects so that we can get things in groups. We had a lot of interesting little brainstorms about doing the grouping in place with the data structure we already have, but I think that's just getting too clever. It's fun, but it's getting too clever.
Okay. This is
Um,
from the DOM to our JavaScript objects, right? Not
yeah,
the story
yeah,
tables to the field objects. Okay.
right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so kind of did some work on planning the refactor there, but I don't want to do that until I don't want to like finish that and like implement that until these random input tests are in anyway, these changes are in. So
That's fair.
but I got started on it, so
Cool.
I'll
Yeah.
I'll try, if I make enough progress to um actually give a clear idea and not just like brainstorming thoughts, I will push that
Yeah. Feel free to make a draft, even if it's like not done, but you think it's clear enough that I could take a look at. That would
at
be
like
easier
what
for
the
me to do over
plan
multiple
is.
days. Yeah. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Yeah, it'll probably be easier to do that than to like first before seeing the final changes. I'm just glad
Okay.
we've written so many tests, because now it's like, do the tests pass?
This is
Yes,
the best
no.
way to write the tests. Although
Yeah.
some of the unit tests I work are kind of, at least when I tried refactoring something at some point, and the unit tests are very specific. They're a little coupled to like how the object is laid out, but at the very
Yes.
least, they're good
Uh,
to have. Yeah.
I don't
They're
know
also
about
old DOM.
the yeah, their old DOM. They're I think the unit tests, this was a discussion we kind of started in one of the PRs, but I think the unit tests have maybe outlived their usefulness.
Which is sad because those are the best tests.
Yes,
I
they're
love them.
so fast.
And they're
They
also
just-
so, I feel like they're also so easy to debug. Like if something goes wrong, I can go and immediately look at the string and I'm like, can think about it. Whereas anything that goes wrong in Kiln, I still have trouble trying to reproduce it and get to a point where I can like dive down and be like, oh, this is what it looks like, and this is what's going wrong. Because we don't, it just
Yeah,
is so those
yeah,
ways.
maybe there's a way we can combine. I wonder if there's a like sensical way we can combine both, because it's just the unit test takes so much upkeep.
Mhm.
And the DOM has changed, and now we really need to just update the, like, really need to update the DOM. In the, you know, the HTML. If we want, I can try and redo we can just do a big update to the unit tests. You're right that like when you change something unintentionally, it's useful to see.
Yeah, it's mostly it only gets in the way for me when it's like, okay, I'm attempting to like change the structure of the object. Oh no, the unit test assumes the structure of the object. Like so,
Yeah, that's
or
the
like what
thing. That's
exactly
the
we're
thing, is
saying.
that a lot of times it feels like it's just like, okay, so I'm updating the, like, I haven't had a lot of situations where I've had an unexpected change to the
Mhm.
object. It's mostly been like, yes, I know it's different. Now I'm gonna have to update everything to match it. Maybe if we can get a good snapshot library, like an object snapshot library where we can easily change the data structure of the objects that we're making. You know what I mean? Are you familiar with snapshots?
Vaguely. Well, what I don't know how we're using it here though.
Well, so visually, right, in React snapshots, it checks the DOM. I mean, not visually, it takes the objects, the React objects, and it says, you know, do they match the expected React objects? You have these
Yeah.
fixtures, right? But if you say, no, 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 these are all expected changes, update the fixtures, it automatically updates the fixtures.
Okay.
And you don't have to like go in and like edit line by line. So if we can find something like that for just not React, you know, for plain old fixtures,
Mhm.
then I think it might be okay, because then we'd have the ability to, but I also want to be able to update the DOM, you know?
Well, I was gonna say
The
I feel
DOM
like that
fixtures.
works when you're controlling both sides of the DOM, and we're like we have to treat the DOM as an input that we always work on.
Yeah.
So
Maybe we could break up the DOM a little bit better so it's not like huge chunks.
that might be a good idea. But yeah, that would be a
We
bit
just
more.
need a plan. We need some kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
more maintainable unit tests.
Yep.
We can make that into an issue. I don't know. I think now is not the time to debate that. Anyway,
Yeah.
so that's stuff I've been working on.
Cool.
And you, sir?
I've been doing e-filing stuff this whole week. A little bit of progress. Still slow progress. Slightly faster. I like started doing stuff in Eclipse again because VS Code was just crashing like 5 times a day because there was some memory leak. But Eclipse is much better. I don't remember why I stopped using it, but yeah, I don't know. That's my overall update. It's making progress. I'm on the big chunk that is actually submitting the filing, which is like 90% of the work. That's all I really got.